just we're gonna briefly go through it because you already know it. But if you are new watching stream or the video on YouTube, welcome to my channel. So my environment looks like that. First, everything here is about connected to the router, which I'm yet to possibly migrate that into standalone pfSense hardware in some point in the future, but not today. So everything is connected to a router of mine, and this laptop is no longer Ubuntu, it's a Windows because I've changed the distro. Don't ask me why. But now it's a Windows laptop from which I'm actually streaming right now. Now on this Windows laptop, I have a Kali VM, which is in breached mode. And if you guys don't know if it's in a breached mode, that means that the VM itself has an IP address like it's a standalone machine connected to the router. If you pay close attention, the router subnet is 192.168.0.1. My laptop is 192.168.0.141, I believe. And so the Kali VM is 122.168.0. something. In that case, it's 206. Which means that these machines are on the same subnet, and essentially the Kali VM is essentially treated as an external machine to my internal network, which is the one here. Now, next to the router, this is again my laptop. Next to the laptop, I have a server which is next to me. Now, this server is again a hardware which is, I think, good enough because it has 64 gigs of RAM and it can contain like 15 virtual machines at once. So this is the PC itself. And now on the PC, everything here, everything below it, is essentially a virtualized environment. Now, here on the PC itself, using VMware Workstation, I've created a dedicated network and VNet, and I essentially created a pfSense firewall, which you can see here. Now, on the pfSense firewall, I've added two interfaces. One interface is the external one, which, as mentioned, is the one with the router. So all these machines are considered external to my pfSense network. And of course, the second interface is internal, aka local interface. So each machine connected to the pfSense firewall will have this IP address. So this is the local IP address of the pfSense firewall, 172.60.60.60, as the same as this is the local IP address for my router. It's exactly the same thing, but a little bit more encapsulated inside. Okay. Now that's important because when we talk about stuff, it's always nice to make sure you can visualize it correctly and to know what's happening at which point and where. Now on this pfSense firewall, this environment is quite good by its own. Now the main idea of this internal network is to be vulnerable, so I can practice stuff, attacks, skills, maybe exploits, maybe maldev and things like that. But also I want to now decide to a little bit more secure the firewall. And what I did exactly with Firewall Secure is I installed a bunch of things. Okay, so what did I install? Now, first things first, pfSense is first open source, which means that you can completely free download the community edition, install onto your hardware or inside a virtual machine and get it to work. So it's 100% free, you can get it. And also it's considered a next generation firewall. Now, what is a next generation firewall? Usually a firewall is a system which passes or denies the traffic based on rules. But next generation firewalls are better than that. I think now you can hear me better. Sorry for that. The microphone was a little bit away. But the next generation firewalls are better because they not only can block and allow traffic, but they have built-in utilities that can give you more security. Now on the pfSense firewall, you can go to the System tab, you can go to the Package Manager. Now inside the available packages, you can see what kind of different tools, third-party the tools or softwares you can actually install. So you can install everything from backing up, you can install Nmap, for example, FTP client, and so on and so on and so on. So you can for sure take a look at these packages. I'm sure they're quite amazing, but I've came up with a bunch of them. Now the first package I installed was Suricata. Give it a little bit of time to load, and there it is. You have Suricata. Now Suricata is IDS IPS system. And usually how you want to do it is you have one option of directly installing Suricata on the firewall, or you can create a port mirror. So you can mirror all the traffic to a specific port, and then you can install Suricata connected to this specific port. That's because this way Suricata can essentially see all the traffic which is coming through and from the firewall, and it can better see what's actually going on with the network. Now, you don't want to install Suricata somewhere there. I mean, it can work for some scenarios, but usually you want to install Suricata or any other form of IDS IPS on the firewall or inside a mirror port from the firewall. This way it can get more visibility over anything pretty much. Right. So besides Suricata, I've also installed Zeek. Now I'm not into Zeek that much. So you guys, if you know a bunch of Zeek tricks specifically for pfSense firewall, make sure to drop them in the chat or in the comments because I'm not so native with it and I just install the packages and observe the different log files. So I'm using the defaults here. And now I've also installed Squid. Squid is an HTTPS reverse proxy, which actually allows you to see what HTTP requests are going on from any of the machines you connect to the proxy. So usually in more realistic environment, what happens is that, of course, you have the firewall, and via GPO, or GPO is the most of the let's say 99% is installed via GPO when you're talking about big companies. So via GPO, the proxy and the certificate for the proxy are installed on every single host, on here, on here, on here, on here, on here. So whenever any of this machine makes a web request, this request goes, of course, first to the firewall, then Squid works as a man in the middle, because in order to use Squid and SSO bumping, you need to download a certificate. Then Squid uses pretty much man in the middle attack to read what's the request, and essentially, again, it can filter the request, it can block the request, it can nonetheless see what the request is about. So having Squid is always good because you can at the end see what happens with your environment and what different systems are requested from which machines from your network. And last but not least, I've installed ntopng. I think that's the best way to pronounce this, ntopng, which is a super badass system which allows you to have more visibility over your network and what happens with specific, let's say, requests and packets. You can trace it where they go, from where they come from, and again, you have some alert-based system for alerting if everything goes wrong. Now, beside that, there's also one super useful thing I managed to find from the pfSense. Again, I'm not native with pfSense, I am still learning. So guys, if you have any tips, again, drop them. Now with the pfSense firewall, I found this pftop function or section, I can say. Now with the pftop, that's quite badass because it allows you to see all the different communication in real time, including what state they have, how old they are, and how many bytes were actually transferred, which when it comes to beaconing, sometimes it can be quite handy. Alright, so now I see you guys have some, I was all the time using the dog pain, sorry. Yeah, never mind. Nice cat, yeah, thanks. Oh yeah, is that a plugin for Obsidian or it's a native? So when it comes to Obsidian, I have a custom theme. If you want, I can share the theme. That's fine. And the one you see here, it's called Canvas. So you can pretty much do. Where was this? Yeah, here, this button, create new canvas. And when you click it, you're gonna have this pane where you can draw. Now, on the one hand side, you can add a card, a standalone card, like that. On the next hand side, you can add an image from anywhere. And on the third hand side, you can add a note, like a real link to note. So you can do things like, let's say, I think it's, lsec.local, yeah, Canvas, there it is. You can link Canvas, you can link notes, you can link pretty much anything. And with double click, you can just land there. So that's all badass. If you guys need some kind of tutorials on how I use Obsidian, how I draw things and work with it, of course, go in the chat. It's your feedback is always welcome. Yeah. All right, so with that, now we can go into some more practical stuff. So here I'm gonna first do a little bit of cleanup because I don't want to be a mess. And now let's start. Okay, how do we start? Is of course by getting a beacon. Now on this pane I have my Kali. As you can see, my IP is 0.206. So again, we're completely following the diagram. This is the Kali VM external for the environment there. Perfect. Now I've already generated the payload. Now if you go to payload, this is my Apple beacon. There is nothing specific about that. I mean, I included all the commands and generated it with default values. Why? Because at the end we are not worried about endpoint protection evasion, we are worried about network evasion. So in this topic we're not going to discuss endpoint protection like AVs or EDRs, we're going to discuss the network side of things. That's super important because it's a different, let's say, fraction of evasiveness. I can say it like that. So with the beacon, I did not pack it, I did not modify it, I did not obfuscate it, I did not do anything with it. The point is to see what's visible on the network and what's not. Right. So with that being said, I've already downloaded the beacon to some of my systems. So I can open mobile extern, move out the Obsidian, and right now I'm using not the full setup, but we have of course the DC, we have the client 01, we have SQL 01, and we have SQL 02. Now I'm gonna go to SQL 01, essentially log in. Then here I'm gonna open a PowerShell window, cd into downloads, and here so you can see apple.exe, which is exactly the same payload. So I can run apple.exe. Let's see if I'm gonna have a beacon now. There it is, I have. So we can go with the they modified the active callbacks. By the way, nice work for the UI. And there it is, your beacon is now here. Okay. Now to make more traffic, I'm gonna simply do sleep 0 and do a bunch of ls just to generate some packages and some packets. Then I'm gonna actually open Explorer. I'm gonna go to downloads. I'm gonna again start it one more time. So here, run Apple, and there it is. Now I want to make sure if I'm first getting to the proxy, and right now I'm not. Why I'm not? You're gonna get that into. We're gonna go into that in a little bit. Okay. So now the beacon is going. I'm gonna do exactly the same thing for SQL2. So I'm gonna again log in. Yep. Then open a PowerShell window. CD into downloads. CD into desktop. And I don't have Apple there. So what I can do is I can download it without a problem. So I'm gonna first need to go and set up a HTTP server. So I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go to downloads, where is my Apple sitting, and now from there I can do Python 3 HTTP server 80. Now from there it's simple as IWR. So IWR HTTP, IWR HTTP 168.0.206 apple.exe into a.exe. Let's call it like that. And there it is, we have a.exe there. Now I can run a.exe. I can also run it one more time like that. And again, make sure I tweak the sleep intervals. So here I do sleep O. I'm gonna also do here sleep O, and also here sleep O. LS. Okay. So now we have a bunch of traffic going on. And now it's time to get back and try to analyze what actually happened. So the first thing that I want to show is the pftop. Now this thing is, as mentioned, super badass. Why it's super badass? Because it was able to detect the session for the Apple beacon. Now I'm not sure is it because of how Apple is actually implemented or not. But as you can see here, we have outbound connection to the IP address of the Kali system, port 443, which is where the beacon is listening on, and we have the connection to be established for around 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. Now if we get the IP address and make a quick search, first we can observe that we have a bunch of connections on port 80. These are the connections where we've downloaded the apple.exe or requested the web server. They are, as you can see, in a finalized state, all right? And they're gonna soon disappear, by the way. And here we have 4 different connections to the IP address of the Kali system. Now, we have 4 different connections, and we have exactly 4 beacons. So with pftop, we can see the beacons, the connection with the beacons, and we can see that they are always having the established state, and they are not gonna die unless the beacon is killed. So even though the Apple is doing requests to my web server for, let's say, some kind of an interval, there is session established from my machine or endpoint to the Apple server, which can be visible here. And now usually the beacons are running on super long scale. When you have a real beacon in a pentest or a red team, it can run for days. And imagine going into the firewall and seeing an established connection to an IP or domain you're not completely sure what it is, and it's running for days. So that's not good. And from us, from perspective of red teaming, we have to, when we do malware or when we play around with beacons, it's super important to pay attention to that. Because if we see that the session is not going dead, and it's keep running even though we do HTTP requests, that's a huge IOC and can get us detected. So at the end, we want to have one request going on, close the session, remove the connection, strip it out, and then analyze the data, execute the commands, and so on, do another request, and repeat, and then sleep. But while sleeping, we have to make sure that there is no leaking session like it is here, because if there is, you can see based on that it can be detected. And of course, if you can pass this data into AI, I'm sure it can suggest that it might be a potential beacon. All right. So pftop is nice because it allows you to see anything. Now, of course, in real environment, it's going to be huge. The output here is going to be gigantic. That's why you need things like CM to aggregate it. That's why you need things like AI to make the analyze better. But our app is simple, and my idea is to showcase how that thing can be seen. So, and again, I'm not a boot teaming expert, so if you guys know a better way, just let me know. I'm gonna continuously repeat that. But that's how I found essentially the Apple beacon, because you can see they're established and they're not going anywhere until the beacon is dead. All right. Now, with that being said, I want to showcase now one of the different tools I've installed, different packages. And the first one is super badass, and this is the ntopng. Now, when you go to ntopng, now usually when you install it first time, you're going to go through these settings. And you need to figure out your password, you need to make sure it's on the LAN interface, and so on. When you save all that, then you can go to this interface, which is port 3000, and then you can log in. Now here, the username, the default one is admin, the password is the one you've done in the settings here, and you just can log in. Now when you log in, you can see the dashboard with the top 4 tokens. Now what the top 4 token means, that is the top machine that generates traffic at the moment. Now we can see that we have 172.168.172.60.60.54 and 172.60.60.52 are both communicating to 192.168.0.206, which is the Kali Linux VM. Now that can be another IOC, because, for example, I need to draw that actually. Let me draw that so I can go here and go there. So imagine, let's do new Canva like that. Let's do one node there. Let's say that's your network. All right. And now here, let's imagine you have several machines like PC1. How can I send this to the back? Okay, fine. We have server 1, We also have server 2. And we also have server 3. All right. So imagine in your environment you have these 3 servers, right? And if you do pen test, or it's more relevant for red team actually. When you go for red team engagement and you find some stealth way on how to compromise all 3 of the servers, and essentially you can achieve RC, you can run a beacon, and you can have your callback. Now, of course, in most of the cases, your attacking infrastructure is going to be external to the network there. So in most of the cases, you're going to have your Kali or whatever server it is there. Of course, you may have some kind of a redirector. That's also a point. By the way, I also have a redirector video in my channel. So if you don't know what that's about, make sure to find it in my channel. Essentially, it's the way to redirect traffic in and out of the network. Okay. So usually you have external servers from where you're gonna have toolings and launch stacks. You have redirectors, or one or multiple, and essentially you found a way to compromise these servers. Now, usually, if you directly compromise them and get a C2 beacon, all of them are gonna actually connect. I hate that. That do not look good. Oh, actually, I can do it like that. Now it's better. Okay. Now imagine there's the network. You compromise all 3 servers. For example, you send a phishing link to a workstation there. With that, you compromise the workstation. After you compromise the workstation, which also has a beacon to you, to your redirector, then you maybe found a way to escalate to server 1, then maybe to server 3, then maybe to server 2, doesn't matter. But at the end, you have 4 beacons, and they are all beaconing back to your environment. Now, usually you don't want to kill your own beacons, because if something goes wrong, you have a backup plan, and you're going to leave them to run. And now here comes the issue. If we do it like that, a simple thing like installing ntopng, and I'm not a boot teamer, again, I'm repeating myself, I'm not a boot teamer, but a simple thing as installing ntopng can get us detected. Why? Imagine having 5, 6, 10 servers, and all of them are communicating to a same strange host with the same strange domain. What do you think can happen? That's super suspicious, and that's not a good idea. So at the end, how to be more effective on red teaming side is to either have multiple redirectors like that, and perhaps chain some of the machines from them, like we're gonna change server 1 and server 2 from the different redirectors, and the rest of them through the redirector 1. So this is gonna be 2, this is gonna be 1. Let's do that to be perhaps some kind of a tower, so we can distinguish between them. So that's the 1, and that's also the 1, and here we have the 2. Yeah, so as you can see, we split the traffic, and that's better because now we don't have 4, 5, 10 machines communicating to one redirector, essentially to us, but we have splitted machines, so some of them are communicating to redirector 1, some of them are communicating to redirector 2. Yeah, that's one way of doing things. Now, usually you can have one redirector per beacon. That's one of my best advice. So if you guys have 4 compromised systems, what you want in the end is to have 4 different redirectors. So we have redirector 1, redirector 3, which is going to be here, like that. And we have redirector 4, and they're always gonna come here. All right. So usually I recommend you, if you need to be stealth on the network, if you need to do it, always go for single redirector for a single hostname. This way you compromise workstation 1, right, cool, you have redirector for it. You compromise then server 1, cool, okay, have redirector for it. You compromise server 3, nice, you have a redirector for it. Perhaps let's do that. And of course, you have compromised another server, and then you have another redirector. By doing that, you can split the traffic. And now one machine can communicate to just one redirector. And now by installing ntopng, nothing is going to be suspicious because first, as mentioned, in real life scenario, you're going to have much more traffic. But trust me, if you have one redirector for more than 2-3 machines, it's going to stand out super fast. So that's something we need to care about all the time if we are speaking about network evasion. Now you can do that via one more way. That's option 1, and option 2 is a little bit similar, like that. Okay, I don't know why that happened. All right. And option 2 is again having, let's say, multiple redirectors or even one redirector. But you can have an egress machine inside. So you can have, let's say, an internal redirector. Or the way that works is essentially you're going to have a machine that communicates with you, which is on the internal network, and all the compromised system you have are going to actually use this machine into communicating with you. So essentially, I don't know why there are more servers. Essentially, when you compromise workstation 1, it's going to communicate to here, server 1 is going to communicate to here, server 3 is going to communicate to here, and server 4 is going to communicate to here. And at the end, this internal redirector is actually going to redirect back to you, back to the redirector, and then the redirector is going to redirect back to you. Now that's the other option of doing things. Now, if that happens, most of the cases, the environments are configured to observe outbound traffic. So what's going on, like from inside to outside, because usually that's the mindset of the people, and they are trying to see what goes out of their network. And if you get that, and if you get that internal redirector, all the system and all the traffic are going to actually go inside this redirector, and all the traffic is going to originate from it. So at the end, you're going to again have one-to-one connection. So if you install things like ntopng, you can just see the internal redirector here communicating with one IP address, which is the Kali or the redirector. Now that, of course, again, migrates a little bit the issue. This is the workaround, I can say. It's not the best one. If I am to choose for evasiveness, I would go for this approach. Why for this approach? Because I think it's the best. So here, let's get back the previous version. All right, workstation 1, server 1, and server 2. Boom. So here, there, and there. Yeah. Usually if I need evasiveness, I would go for that all the time. If I don't have resources, then I would go for that. But that's my workaround plan. And also, the good thing about this approach here is that some C2s natively supported, like Mythic. In Mythic, you can have this egress host. And also you can use internal protocols like SMB. So at the end, if you have one internal redirector, you can configure other beacons to essentially communicate with this redirector over SMB. So this is going to be SMB, this is going to be SMB or FTP or anything else. This is going to be SMB. Do not make any. Now let's make it more clean. And also this is going to be SMB. So when that thing happens, or perhaps this can be HTTP, because that's our initial payload, but you get the idea. When that happens, it's going to be a little bit harder to track because of the use of different protocol. But of course, don't think that's impossible. And if they have a bunch of rules, it's going to be detected. So again, for me, the best option is the one right here. If we need to bypass these rules of sticking out for communicating multiple machines to one specific environment. How much RAM do you give the Windows VMs? I don't know, to be honest. Let's see. I think 4 or 8. Yeah, 4. I don't have less than 4. And I think some of them are having 8. So I think this one is 8. Oh no, it's 4. And I think the DC may be 8. Yeah, 4. Never mind. So all of them are 4. Yeah, the rich guy approach. Yeah, exactly. Use SMBT spinning beacons. Yeah, this is for the second part. Yeah, exactly. Isn't it a bit recreating the many to one traffic flow we try to prevent? No. So here what happens is if that. So let me go back. If that happens and you have multiple beacons, first communicating to an internal machine, which is inside the network, and then this machine communicates to the redirector. Yes, this machine is going to send more packets, but it's going to be one. So here we can see that two machines are sending traffic, that IP, and if that was the case, and we had this egress host, it's going to be just one. So we're going to just bypass this many machines compromised detection. Yeah. All right. So moving on with these two, I'm still not native with it. I am yet to discover it better, but essentially it allows you to better see the network. You can see general stats, general charts about how many is received. You can go to flows and see the different, let's say, warnings. Here you can see that that's another IOC, by the way, which we need to discuss about. Here we see the connection from 52, which is SQL1, to the 206 via HTTPS. And we can see that we have a warning or alert for it that the connection is using self-signed TLS certificate. So again, that's nonetheless, I don't want to get into that much details, but if you guys want evasiveness, just don't go for self-signed certificate. That's not how it works. Okay. Here we can see also the duration. We can see that this communication was going on for 20 minutes now, which is again the first thing I wanted to talk about. So try when do malware, try not to do long session. Try to make sure that when your beacon gets it tasking, when your beacon knows what to do and execute something, not only to sleep but to shut down the session. So we don't have connection lasting for 20 seconds. Now, of course, I have of course, this can be because of the sleep zero, but I can get a new beacon, guys. Just to showcase that, I can get a new beacon here. Which this time is gonna, I'm not gonna touch it on the settings. There it is. So I'm not gonna touch beacon 11 on the sleep settings. I can do just ls, ls, ls. But during my testing, I'm quite sure that it had the same behavior. So I can go to pftop, again filter out for my IP address. There it is, there's the fourth, and as you can see, we have 4 ones for 20 minutes going on, and we have the fifth one for around 23 seconds, and it's gonna take a bunch of more time, so we're gonna leave it be. But I think it's the same behavior pretty much. So that's the 4 beacons, and that's the fifth one running for now, 30 seconds. Even though it has sleep interval of 10 seconds, it's still running. All right. So moving on with ntopng, we have Alert Explorer, which explains if everything goes bad regarding to the system itself. Now, usually don't expect this to be. I mean, yeah, this is why you don't have to use the default certificates or the self-signed certificates because you can leak your situ quite fast. just by observing the TLS certificate. Now, of course, this is a high IOC. Having to stick with the default settings for your situ or default setting for your infrastructure is nonetheless quite forbidden if you want to achieve evasiveness. So don't do that, guys. Here, ntopng was able to detect the mythic situ certificate. So don't do that. Always generate at least custom certificates to not have your situ there. But I'm quite happy with these two. It can go with traffic discovery, network discovery. It can showcase a bunch of connections, a bunch of traffic. As you can see, we can active monitor specific hosts and specific connection. We can block connections, by the way, because at the end we're on the firewall. We can see hosts which are running now for some of the hosts. ntopng was able to detect DOS. For some hosts, it's not. Why? I'm not exactly sure, but that's how it works. And essentially, I'm quite happy with that. It can give you general visibility of your network, including a bunch of words, a bunch of packets, a bunch of protocols, what apps is being used, and what kind of connection there is. So here on this tab, we can see that majority of the traffic is TLS, which is essentially HTTPS traffic. Now, this HTTPS traffic, of course, comes from the beacon. By clicking the TLS itself, you can see which connections are doing that traffic. And now, where is the menu now? There it is. And now here you can see pretty much the beacons. And of course, in real environment, you can see more legit TLS traffic going on, but essentially, now here you can pretty much see what kind of traffic goes by. So how much percentage is the ICMP, how much is TLS. You get the idea. Okay. Now moving on from these two, let's see what you guys think about. What are you giving away? We are giving away one-on-one coaching session for free. So if you want to participate, you have to wait for this video to be uploaded on YouTube and then just like the video and comment coach. If you do it, you're gonna automatically play for the giveaway. I'm gonna in the next stream, in the beginning of the next stream, I'm gonna randomly choose one of the participants, and essentially you can win one-on-one coaching for free, 1 hour. So if you want, if you think that's gonna be useful, feel free to join. You can even get your EC2 instance or domain cancelled if they have scanners that report your EC2. Exactly. I had forgot one Nginx rule to redirect and load the traffic, and it was enough to get domain strike. Yeah, there are a bunch of things like that. You can also customize it, but I think the main thing you have to do is to make sure that your environment is not default. That's super important. So when you download Mythic, you can go to cd op Mythic, then go to cd install services, then go to HTTP because that's how you accept the communication. All right. Then here you have your again cd into HTTP, C2 code. And here we have your configuration, which is config.json. Now I'm using this standalone default config. But if we want to achieve evasiveness, guys, don't do that. Make sure to customize server headers. Make sure to customize the certificates. Make sure to customize everything there is, because now if we have a legit certificate, if we have legit certificates on the redirector, for example, a Cloudflare one or digital, or doesn't matter, AWS, and you have custom headers for your Mythic C2 server with custom certificates, you're not going to be detected from that. You're not going to be detected. So always make sure, if you want to get network evasion, and not only network evasion, evasion in general, to customize all these configs for all your tools, no matter if you use Havoc, Sliver, Mythic, or anything in between. Yeah. Now moving on. Now we're gonna go with the two different tools I'm using. The next one on the list is Zeek. So when you run Zeek, you're gonna of course go to the settings here, but it's not that big of a setting. You just have to define your host name with the host or IP. In that case, it's my pfSense firewall. You're gonna check that to enable it. You're gonna check your interface. I'm not sure why that's one. In most cases, a one interface will be used, so I just stick with default. And of course, you have to place your local network, your local subnet. And in my case, it's 172.60.60/24. Now on the Zeek, that's again, I'm using the standard config. You can see where it works files and so on. And I've let Zeek run for a while. All right. And now when that happens, you can go into the real-time inspection, choose a log file, and essentially see it. Now on the log files, there are a bunch of logs that are interesting for us. For example, the software log, for example, the stats log, for example, the HTTP log, which goes around different HTTP connections. And also, for me, the most interesting was the weird log. The weird log is, how I see it, is a log for matching. It's a log file that logs connections or traffic that matches specific Zeek rules, or perhaps, let's say, Zeek finds it strange. That's why it's called weird walk. Now in this weird walk, what we can see the beacons. We can see all the beacons going on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we can correlate a bunch of stuff. On the one hand side, we have pftop that says that we have 5 established connections that are running for a while. Yeah, it's not that, sorry. So here you can pretty much filter by the IP address. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is, the 5th. Now the 5th is running for 7 minutes, even though we have 10 seconds of callback interval. On the one hand side, we have 5 connections from 2 different machines to the same host name over SSL, like for port 443, and they are running for some time. On the next hand side, Zeek can confirm them to be weird. For Zeek, these connections are kind of extraordinary. Then we have ntopng, which again finds a bunch of alerts for these specific connections. They used TLS certificate, and these machines connect to the same host pretty much, which by observing the TLS certificate, we can see that it's a mythic C2. And now by this time, we can completely get to know that this is a beacon. For sure. So on the next hand side, we can also see that we have more traffic sent than the traffic received. The ratio to sent received is bigger. That's also like a standard beaconing thing, all right? And now by correlating all this stuff, we get to know it's a beacon. Now, usually now you may ask, but also in most of the environments, these things are actually not that bad because there's a lot of traffic and they can blend in. I can say no, because in the real environment, there's more advanced systems that take care for this stuff. There's an AI, which can be hard to deceive, and there's also CM management, which actually collects the logs from all the system, which can be easily analyzed. For example, take a look at Security Onion. It's a place for a bunch of things, which has Elastic, which has Zeek, which has Suricata, and things like that, but combined, and with one interface, which can be super easier to analyze. At some point, I might also install that, but now it's not today. And essentially, by combining CM with more badass tools for greater coverage, with AI, this can be detected quite fast. Now, at the point that some system detects that we have a mythic C2 inside the TLS certificate details, it's already over. That's it. It's GG. So, as a red teamer, we need to care about a bunch of things. First to care about is to not, of course, use one system for all the beacons. Make sure we use super customized environments. Make sure we customize the headers. Use custom TLS certificate and pretty much use anything custom. And also make sure that our beacon do not create and establishes long time sessions. And I'm not sure why Apu does that. I'm yet to chat with Code. I'm gonna ask him about it, but that's not alright, because you can see, even though the 5th beacon has 10-second sleep interval, the session is wide for 11 minutes now, which is bad. Alright. Now, let's get back to the last point of the demo what I prepared, and that's the Squid proxy. So again, you can install the Squid proxy with a very simple manner. You can just go to System and then to Package Manager, Available Packages, and install Squid. Now, when you install Squid, you're gonna have it there, where it is. Status, services, there it is. You're gonna have Squid, which also comes by default with ClamAV for some kind of antivirus, but I don't really recommend that because it's super easy to bypass. It's just better without it. So forget about ClamAV, don't mind that. I've just disabled it. But Squid is there. So from here you can start and restart the service, and you can configure it from there. Now I'm running pretty much the default config. You can copy it if you want. The port is default. I've enabled transparent mode proxying. Interface is 1. I enabled SSL filtering. Now what's SSL filtering? Essentially in Squid it's called SSL bumping, and that's like SSL stripping for man-in-the-middle attacks. You have certificates, you install that certificate on specific machines, and when they communicate through you, you can see what requests have been sent. So we pretty much decrypt, see the packets, recrypt, and send them back. Okay, so just enable that. I've set it to splice O. Now the default port is 3129, so you don't have to type it there. And essentially, you have to choose a CA. Now, if you don't have a CA, it's super simple. You can go to System, then go to Certificates, and then you can just click Add, and then add your CA. That's super simple. It's like that. And when you have your CA, you can then choose it there, and when you click on the CA, you can see it's used by Squid. So it's super simple config. It's nothing that crazy, I can say. All right. So by default, it's gonna walk into this directory. All right, and pretty much that's the config. Now I also have some kind of custom SSL bumping options, but I'm not sure what's about that for 100%. I use ChatGPT to help me getting these options, and I'm not sure if they are needed at all. All right. Okay, so this is the settings. And now when you set up Squid, you can then go to real time. By the way, I did not set up authentication, but you can if you want, and it's needed in real environment. If you can go to real time to see what happens in real time with your connections, and you can also observe the log files. So if you pay close attention into the general tab, you can scroll a little bit down and you can see the log store directory will be that. So what you can do is go to diagnostics, then edit a file, and then just load this file into the pane. Load it, browse it, logs, there it is. And you can see 3 types of log files. We have netdb.state, which I think is some kind of a caching mechanism for Squid. You have cache.log, which is, I believe, again, cache mechanism for Squid. All right. Or some kind of internal log to see what's going on with the software. And then you have access.log. Now with access.log, you can essentially see the requests going from the machines using Squid. Let me showcase how this works. I can simply remove everything from the log file. Everything. Right. Then I have to go here and make sure I'm using the proxy. So I'm gonna connect to my system. All right. Now I'm gonna go here, go to proxy settings, turn on proxy. This is the IP and this is the port, and save. All right. Now let's see if the beacons are alive. They are. So this did not kill the beacon. Why did not kill the beacon? Because the beacons are using port 443 and Squid by default allows this port. If I were to use different port like 4444, which you're gonna see in a bit, it's not gonna work. So that's nonetheless to say that if you want to have maximum evasion, you have to use either port 443 or use third-party net channels for your beacon like Discord, Slack, and so on, which at the end use port 443. Yeah. All right. So when you have loaded the proxy settings, I'm gonna open Firefox super fast. Come on. I'm gonna open Firefox and I'll navigate to my Kali system. There it is. I'm gonna make a bunch of requests, then go back here and just refresh the log file. There it is. Now we have traffic going on. Now we can see what our machine is actually connecting to. Right. We can see that we're connecting to our machine via port 443. That's actually the beacon. There it is. We have the beacon. We have some traffic going on to Go Microsoft. I mean, we are at the end using Windows. That's quite normal to have these kind of things. Then we have Mozilla traffic going on because we started Firefox. And at the end, we have some kind of spamming and requests for our HTTP instance, which is us getting our web server. Now that's normal, but I think having a Squid is nice because it can give you visibility about what's requested. Now, usually what might happen is all this data from the access.log can be again passed into a CM, let's say Elastic, and then different rules can be, let's say, implemented. For example, if there are, let's say, one different connection per millisecond or so on, this perhaps might be a tunnel. Because in order to do a tunnel, you need to do sleep 0, which is gonna do a session, and a lot of requests gonna fly by. So then you can aggregate stuff, you can see how many number of requests there are and what they are requesting. So you can then better analyze the IP, and this can be like CM is a go-to for every boot teamer. You just cannot get over it. There it is. Yeah. Alright, now our beacon continues to work. There it is, there it is, there it is. Alright. So having a Squid is nice, but now let's see how else we can get detected. Now in order to make this demo, I'm gonna go back, and here I'm gonna actually continue running my server. But here I can generate MSF Venom payload. So I can go to downloads and do MSF Venom, Windows x64, interpreter, reverse HTTPS. That's gonna generate interpreter staged reverse HTTPS. So reverse interpreter over HTTPS staged payload. I'm gonna generate that with lhost, of course, ETH0 port 4444. I'm intentionally putting that port, don't mind for now. Format exe, output https.exe. Now I've already run it, and you can see the file there. It's exactly the same command which I just ran now. So to start it, I can do sudo msf console, run it like that. Wait a little bit to finish up. There it is. Now again, just set up the listener in the standard way. So use exploit multi-handler, set payload, Windows x64, interpreter, come on, reverse HTTPS, set lhost th0, set port 4444, and on. Now this is gonna start the handler. Now here I'm gonna go to my system, to my SQL1, which is connected to Squid. I'm gonna simply refresh and download HTTPS. Now I've already downloaded it, so I can open a PowerShell, sit into downloads, and execute it. So HTTPS 1. Okay. Now I'm gonna be fast and make sure to... Oh, it was not that. Okay, I'm gonna be fast to end it because it generates a lot of logs, and you can see why. But if I go back, you can see that nothing happens. We did not see any requests going in. We did not see anything as staging. Now if I do the same for my SQL2, which is not connected to the Squid proxy, you can see that we can get a session. So if I go to, I can open a new PowerShell, see into downloads, and pretty much get it. So IWR 168.0.6 https.exe. If I run it, here you can see it works. Alright. Why it did not work from the Squid connected host? Because first Squid has its own filtering and its own blocking mechanism, which prevents anything from untrusted ports, such as 4444. But now I want to showcase and pinpoint your attention to something else, which is if we open access.log and we scroll a little bit down, see what happens. If that's not the beacon, I don't know what it is. So first Squid sees that we are connecting to the IP and port 4444. Of course, the connection is denied because of the Squid rules, and we can also get some kind of a strange base 64 as a data. Now this strange base 64 as a get parameter is the staging part, because at the end, we generated a staged payload, which means that whenever we execute the payload, the remote machine is gonna download the rest of the interpreter in order to fully work. And now this downloading part in Metasploit example, in this payloads example, is done via GET requests, which is super bad, because if there is a GET request like that, you can super easily pinpoint and see the exact GET details and arguments which are passed. And since that's a staged payload, the arguments are looking strange as a base64 giant payload, which generates a lot of traffic, which increases its chance to be detected. So one general rule of thumb, by observing the behavior from Squid, is to always use a trusted port like 443, and to never ever get your stages over GET requests. Perhaps do it as a post request, do it inside a cookies, or perhaps anything else, but never as a GET request, because I think it's the easiest way to get detected. Now, I know that if you get your staging inside the post data, it can also maybe be detected, but I think it's tremendously harder than the GET request, because you can see with a simple Squid we can observe each GET parameters, and simply by looking at the log files we can pinpoint the beacon activity. So that's super important. Now at the end I can summarize everything by combining different things and correlating different data for red teaming. Now, to make a general checklist, we at the end want to have as many ready vectors, as many machines we compromised, and if that's not possible, it's advised to have an internal machine that acts as a ready vector. Now, we want to have our environment always to be customized. We don't want to stick with any of the default system out there. No matter if you use Havoc, no matter if you use Sliver, no matter if you use Mythic, no matter if you use anything. Even it can be the best C2, if you don't customize it, it's worthless, because it's going to be detected super fast. So make sure you customize your environment, use a lot of ready vectors, and do not make mistakes like using default certificates, using self-signed certificates, using uncommon ports like 4444, and also always be aware for the proxy related communication. Don't get your staging as a giant base64 blob as a GET request arguments, because you can see how easy it is to detect. Now imagine the boot team guy seeing in Elastic or in his CM a bunch of requests coming in to a specific machine having strange base64 as GET arguments. Well, you're going to be detected. So I think that was it for today. I want to say thank you guys for sticking by. I hope that was useful for you. For sure, it was fun to me to have this stream, and I'm happy with it. Now we can talk about the staging in GET. Your point of view about staging. My point of view about staging is that without a staging, you can't do anything. You cannot just embed the payload, but there's a bunch of ways on doing staging. Now, if you ship the payload and the executable separately, like in a zip file, that's also staging. It's called local staging. You can stage it with IDS. You can stage it via SMB. You can stage it via HTTP, but for example, using POST or a WebSocket or a third-party channel like Discord. There's plenty of ways to stage it, and for me, it's like a matter of trial and error. So, in base case scenario, you can set up an environment, you can use trial periods that mimic your client's environment, and then try to work around with it. Try to customize your payload to be evasive, and customize your staging that works for that specific environment. There's no silver bullet that works for all the environments. The C2 staging, yes, if you do pre-staging with the bin file, for example, that's different. Yeah, that's my point. But the idea is to experiment, really. So have a mimic of the environment if possible, and experiment. Because, as mentioned, no techniques works against all environments. Sometimes one might work, sometimes other might work, but the last thing I'm gonna do is use it like that inside the get arguments. That's just not alright. And that's in the path. You can see it's a path. It's a it's a port slash and then this staged payload. It's inside the path, which is bad. Always make sure to use some kind of generic paths like telemetry, like config, like office, like analyze, native Microsoft things and requests, and try to mimic them as much as possible. Yeah. All right. With that, I don't have anything else to discuss. So I want to say thank you guys for participating in the stream. Highly appreciate it. I want to thank you guys for watching the video on YouTube, and I want to special thanks everyone inside my Patreon. So if you have further appreciation to my work, don't hesitate and become a Patreon. By doing so, you show appreciation, and in return you get a lot of things like the Shadowboard, my private packer, like the Home Situ Agent, internal documentations, effective DLL injection, custom videos, and more, which I'm sure can be handy and helpful. So, highly appreciate my patrons and thank you for the support you give me. So with that, thank you everyone. This is going to be uploaded to YouTube, and once again, if you want to participate in the giveaway, like the video on YouTube and comment the word coach, and you can automatically apply for the giveaway system. The next stream we're going to start by choosing the winner. Thank you so much, moving on, and have a nice night. Bye bye.